Hi friends, and thanks so much for being here today. Today I want to share with you a technique for creating some amazingly beautiful backgrounds using alcohol markers and some rubbing alcohol. There are lots of different ways to try this out, and every time you do it, you're going to get a different result. Let's start looking at how to do these beautiful backgrounds. So here are a few of these backgrounds I have created. I've been having so much fun playing around with these with different colors, different techniques, and I just couldn't wait to share these with you. They turn out one of a kind. Like I said, you can mix all different colors and play around with it in a lot of different ways. And I'll mention some different things you can play around with here after I demonstrate kind of the basic way for how to do these. So let me share this with you. For what I'm doing here, I'm going to use the same two colors of my Stampin' Blends markers. Now, these are alcohol markers. These are different than regular water-based markers. And if you have other alcohol markers, you can do these with them as well. I love my Stampin' Blends. I love coloring with them. I'm not really a coloring person, but I just love the way my projects look when I do color with these markers. So the colors I'm using for these right here, I'm using Dark Mango Melody and Light Calypso Coral. I've already colored a little bit of my Calypso Coral here on this piece of vellum. So I have 3 pieces of vellum here. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to create with these alcohol marker backgrounds. I've taped them down with some washi tape. I was finding it really helped to tape these to my work surface. We'll see if it helps as much taping it to the paper, if it helps hold them flat. They do like to curl up when you're creating with them. Here's one that I have created as well. Sometimes they curl up in a little roll, and taping it down helps a little bit to prevent that. So what you want to do is on your vellum, just kind of make some scribbles. And you can play around with whether you want to do just one color first or 2 colors. Here I am mixing these 2 colors together. As you can see, just scribbling. When you're at your edges, you want to be careful not to drag back across that edge so that it doesn't damage the tip of your marker. Now that I have those 2 colors intermixed, what I need is some rubbing alcohol. And how you apply the rubbing alcohol, you can do this different ways, like I'm going to show you here in a second. But I'm going to pour some into this little bowl. And I have, here are the tools I'm going to be using for these. I'm going to be using just a regular paintbrush. The cheaper, the better. We aren't going to be taking care of the tip very well here. So I just have a cheap paintbrush. Here is one of my water painters. And then also a spritzer. So for this one, I am just going to take that paintbrush, dip it into the rubbing alcohol. You can play around with how much you use. If you want to use a lot and just kind of go right onto the vellum, or if you want to dab some of that off and use just a little bit less. But with this technique, with this paintbrush, I am going to do a little dabbing mainly between the colors. But again, this is all about playing and just kind of seeing what you can come up with. Now, before you dip back into the alcohol, if you can remember, you may want to dab off some of that, because if you go straight back in, you will get some of that color in that alcohol. So if you're doing this with different colors, then that may kind of blur things together and make things mucky and brown. So if you can remember, dab that off on your scrap paper or on a little, like a baby wipe. And what's fun about this is it just keeps moving and changing. So if I play with this more, it is going to bleed more. It's going to blur more and blend more. I am going to leave this one the way it is for now. And let's go on and let's do the same thing, but we're going to do a different way with these same colors again. So again, this is my Light Calypso Coral. I will mention on my samples that I showed you, if you want to see some detailed samples, if you want to know which colors I used, I am going to post pictures of these on my website with the colors listed out of what I used and how I did it. So if you would like to see those, you can use that link in the video description below. Go to my website and it will have all those colors listed out. So just do some scribbles. Nothing about this needs to be neat. And for the second one, I am going to do it in a little bit tidier way. You can use one of your water painters, and if you want to, you can just fill the barrel up with alcohol and just do it that way. For what I'm doing here, I just decided I would dip the tip here in and sort of just paint between the lines. And this keeps that alcohol in a much more confined area than the dabbing, which kind of goes all over. And it will give us a little bit different effect. Now, what you'll find out when you're doing this is the colors you're going to use, that is going to have a huge effect on how these turn out. Some of them seem to bleed together a little bit easier than others. Some of them, it's a little bit more difficult to get everything to bleed, but it's just a lot of fun to play with these and see the different effects. And as you go, kind of learn if you like one technique over another, or if you like the spritzing or using the paintbrush like I'm doing now, or the water painter. But I love when I do projects when each and every one of them can be one of a kind. And techniques like this and like watercoloring are going to give you something different every time for sure. Okay, so let's leave that one. We'll let it dry. You can let these dry on their own, or with this third one, you're going to see I'm actually going to use my heat tool. But for this one, I am just going to apply one color of ink first. So we'll start with this Calypso Coral. Put this on in patches. If you ever have, when your markers have been very well used, if they ever get a little low on ink, you can hang on to them. You can still use them really nicely with this technique. So it's a nice way to get a little bit more use out of those markers that have been well loved. Okay, now that I have that on there, I want to bring in my spritzer, and I have filled this with rubbing alcohol. I have labeled this one, as you can see, with an A on the bottom. That way I can tell the difference between the one that has the rubbing alcohol in it and my one just with plain water. I do have my heat tool here ready to go. And after I spritz this, I want that alcohol to move around some. And you can do this a few different ways. You can actually use one of the, what are they called? Is it a bulb syringe, or like I think they're called nasal aspirators, those little bulb things used for babies to, pardon me for lack of a better way of saying it, like clean out their noses. You can use those, a clean one of course, to blow this around. I've seen people use just a drinking straw and actually blow air through it to push it around. I'm just using my heat tool. Now, the downfall of the heat tool is it's also applying heat. So the rubbing alcohol is going to evaporate faster. So if you find that the rubbing alcohol evaporates faster than you want it to, and you want that color to move and flow more, you can try one of those other ways to blow the liquid around and move it. But I am just going to spritz. I'm going to attempt not to get my third sample over here. But I just want to spritz these, and I'm going to do just a section at a time. And then you'll see how I use the heat tool to kind of move that color around. And we are going to keep playing with this some more. What I love with this technique is when you get these thicker areas where it kind of pulls off to the side and then it dries up right there. I love that. Now I want this to be a little bit darker. So I am going to repeat what I just did with the same color. And after we finish with this color, then I do want to bring in a second color. And you can play around with this too and add in a second color at the same time if you want. But doing it this way keeps your colors a little bit more separated instead of them just blurring together. Isn't that beautiful? I just love this. So you can do these with a single color, but like I said, I want to do these all with my same colors so you can see the difference in how they turn out. Now, just for fun, I am going to come back and dab this one some more with more ink. You can see how they've turned out right now. Let's do a little bit more, and then while I'm finishing this one up, we can see how this one turns out. So if I come back and just kind of dab all over, I am not wiping that brush off. I am using all of the rubbing alcohol that is on that paintbrush. And you can watch that. That is going to change here as it sits. It's kind of like magic. I just love it. Okay, now for fun, again, we're going to bring in this other color, add it in, and see how it turns out. So I'm mainly applying my color here in areas that didn't get that Calypso coral color. And we will spritz and use the heat tool and see what happens. So right here, I didn't get a lot of blending. You can still see those marker strokes. So what I can do is just add a little bit more alcohol, let that sit for just a second, and then try it again. So there you can see these three backgrounds. Like I said, you're going to get different results every time. I think this one is my favorite. I do love these. They all turn out different. So like I said, if you want more information on these samples that I created, the colors, and a little bit more information on how I did each one, I would love for you to use that link in the description below to go to my website. I'll also link to the products I've used in the video description below. Now, I have all these beautiful backgrounds, and what am I going to do with them? Well, in an upcoming video, I will share with you some different ways to create beautiful cards with these really neat backgrounds. So I hope you'll subscribe if you're new here, and check back and see that video here coming out soon. Thanks so much. Have a blessed day, and I hope you'll be back again next time when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.